Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. Until you answer this question, you won't retire. And this is a question that actually comes up a lot. So it seems like it's a question people would know the answer to, or have at least thought about. That ends up being part of the problem. I get asked often, and sometimes I ask this question to find out where somebody is in their financial journey. How much do you need to retire? And there's two problems with this. The first thing is how much you need to retire has changed forms in what you need to retire significantly in the last couple hundred years. In the 18th century, what do you need to retire was the doll's back in the window. That's creepy. Nobody's been up there. Video proof that it wasn't there about a week ago. I need to move. In the 18th century, people were farmers in the US, and the idea for retirement was have enough offspring so they run the farm when you can't anymore. Well, in the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution kicks in, and the Fords and the Rockefellers say, we're going to make the schools Monday through Friday with a bell that starts your day, the bell that ends your day, make you factory workers. But to bring you in from the factory, since your retirement was how many kids you can have, can run the farm when you are too old to do it, we need to give you pensions. So in the early 19th century, pensions were a little more common, and people came in off the farms. But then companies quickly realized that when people lived to 45 as a general average age, pensions weren't such a bad idea. You know, how many years do you need to work to retire? It went from how many kids do you need to have to how many years do you need to work to get that pension? And then all of a sudden, the life expectancy went up into the 50s, 60s, 70s. And pensions were no longer viable for companies. So how many years you work doesn't impact if you can retire or not. Now what we have is, the problem is, the majority of people, and I don't mean like 51%, I mean like 90-something% of the people can't answer the question. How much do you need to retire? So you get some people who get on the financial path and they find out, hey, there's a question I need to ask. How much do I need to retire? And the reason I ask this when I meet somebody to find out where they're at in their education of finances is if they're just starting out and they've never thought of this before, and you ask the question, like, why is somebody doing a video outside in the snow? It's a good question. Because in the Pacific Northwest, we don't get it often, and the sun singes us, so we like it when there's no sun. If you ask somebody how much you need to retire, most times, if they haven't thought about it, they're going to give you a number. Right? There'll be those super depressing people that go, I'll never be able to retire. Inflation that I don't even understand, or things cost too much. But the people who have thought, okay, I need to retire someday, whether it's now or medically forced or age forced, will give you a number. And this lets you know they haven't thought about it. Maybe they've heard of the 4% rule and they can go, okay, well, based on my annual expenses, 25 times that is $1.5 million. They can give you a number. So maybe they've got that idea down. That's a good thing. But if they go, I need $1 million or $5 million or $10 million, there's a good chance they're going to run into, if they do start focusing on finances, they're going to fall into the trap that I call the Hermosi, the Morby, and the Orman trap. These are three people who I know have made enough money to retire many times over and could have experienced all of life, every minute of the day with their kids, every minute of the day with their loved ones, tripling the amount of life that they have, using the math of time to get 3 more times of life every day than you have when you're working. But the people who realize this is how finances work and they actually become wealthy, they learn how to save and invest, the 2-step process to reaching financial freedom, they keep moving the goalpost, right? They evolve to the point where they have a goalpost, right? In the 18th century, I know how many kids I need. In the 19th century, I know how many years I need to work for the pension. In the 2000s, I know how much I need invested to give me the cash flow that I need or the 4% rule that I need. But there are people, and I respect them, right? These are very respectable business people that have grown many businesses, made a lot of money. They keep working. They keep doing they don't have half hour a day that's theirs. I heard Orman in an interview one time talking about being financially free and retired. She said, I don't think 5 million or 10 million is even enough because things become so expensive as you get older because of healthcare concerns. If you have a goalpost that you can move that easy, you can never retire. We have to use a bit of common sense and figure out what is a safety buffer, enough invested or enough cash flow to handle black swan events in the future. The majority of people aren't thinking about it at all, and they're probably going to get caught living on hopium. They're going to go, SSI, or what I have in my retirement accounts, I hope I have more money than I have life. And you don't want to get caught living on hopium. Have a plan. Pick a number. Answer the question. And this is something I learned running a business. Until something is measured, it can't be improved. I'm not saying you can't move the goalpost. Things change, right? The financial ninja, I forget his actual name of his channel, retires at 41, then has some kids and decides I got to go back to work because I had kids. Things change in the future. But if you don't set a goalpost, if you don't figure out using my strategy, if it's the 4% rule, it is a certain amount invested. Yes, you have an allocation and you have the buckets method. And if you invest in stocks, don't listen to me. Listen to Joe Kuhn here on YouTube, Kuhn. If I invested in stocks, that's who I'd go learn from because I don't know anything about stocks. I invest all in real estate. With real estate, it's an amount of cash flow, right? Money that comes in that pays the mortgages, that pays for future repairs and expenses, that pays for vacancies, that pays for your lifestyle, and then a multiple of your lifestyle so that you can hand an eviction moratorium, a pandemic, a stock market crash, rents going down, whatever is going to happen in the future that you can't predict. There is a way to be ready for it financially. But the real risk is, and this is the exercise I want you to do, just go ask people in your circle, where you work, friends, family, doesn't matter, strangers on the street, do the street interview thing that I'll probably be doing in Vegas next week. But how much do you need to retire? And let me know, how many people had a clue? Because I believe, and this is my honest belief, I believe most people, some of the people watching this video, even though they've found financial information on YouTube University, still think of retirement as this big, fuzzy, scary number that's so scary and so big that you don't invest at all. Why start something when you don't know the end goal? Why play in a game where you don't know the rules? If you don't know how or when you would win the game, when would you start? This is how we end up with 48% of Americans between the age of 55 and 65 that have zero saved for retirement. That's not an insignificant number. It's like my nephew said, though. His ATM told him his bank had insignificant funds. After you decide how much you need to retire, which is a movable goalpost, I want you to ask yourself the most important question. And this is a nice short live on my phone where I will look at all the chat after. I didn't get to see it during the video because of the snow reflecting on the screen and the doll creeping me out. So I'm trying not to look at her. Once you've decided how much you need to retire, I want you to go to the next question. The question isn't, how much do I need to retire? It's how much life do I want to have? Yes, while you're working, you're still alive. But if you have to work, because if you stop working, you don't eat next week, or you don't have a place to live, then you're not living. Until you can reach financial freedom and make work optional, whether you work or not, that's when you can actually start living. And you're only going to get, if you're lucky, 7 to 9 decades on this planet. Do you really want to spend 100% of your adult life having to work? Just because most people are afraid to ask the question of how much do I need to retire, because it is a big, scary number. If you want your questions answered during a live stream, I'm here every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific, and I answer all of the questions, even the rude ones. Like, what is the doll's name?